Well, I keep saying, de-emphasize anxiety, reassure people. You meet people who say, I'm really scared. I'm scared about my job. I'm scared. And so don't worry. You don't know enough to worry. That's God's truth. Worry. Who do you think you are that you should worry, for crying out loud? Don't worry. That's God's truth. It's a total waste of time. It presupposes such a knowledge of the situation that it is in fact a form of hubris. Now what you do is just pay your bills and, pack heat if you need to, and don't worry. That's all. Yes. Worry is praying to the devil. That's great. Worry is betting against yourself. Wepo Yang, a great Chinese Taoist who wrote many, many commentaries on the I Ching. He was asked at the end of his life, what was his conclusion of a life of studying the I Ching? He said, worry is preposterous. That was it. Don't worry. You don't know enough to worry. That's God's truth. Worry. Who do you think you are that you should worry, for crying out loud? Don't worry. That's God's truth. Worry. You don't know enough to worry. That's God's truth. Worry. Who do you think you are that you should worry, for crying out loud? That's God's truth. Worry is preposterous. Don't worry. Worry is preposterous. Don't worry. Worry is preposterous. Worry is preposterous. Don't worry. Worry is preposterous. Worry is preposterous. That's God's truth. That's God's truth.
Happiness is fleeting, and suffering requires a sustaining meaning. Happiness is fleeting, and suffering requires a sustaining meaning. That place where the meaning and the fact are conjoined, that's the proper place to lecture from. What you want to do as an academic is tell your students about something that you've encountered, that you've fallen in love with, and to communicate the love that you have for that. And not to say, well, you should read this book, but to say, well, here's this book, and here's what it can open up for you, and this is how it does it. This is what you'll gain from it. There's something in it that's of unbelievable utility, and you have to believe that in order to communicate it. To communicate that commitment you have to beauty and to truth and to literature, it isn't enough to say what they are and to transmit them. It's to manifest yourself as a living part of that tradition and to show yourself thereby as a model for living out what that tradition represents, and to show that that's so much better than like a short-term pleasure-seeking nihilism. They're not even in the same conceptual universe. And people are far more open to that. They know already. People know, especially when they're hurt. They know that happiness is fleeting and suffering requires a sustaining meaning. They know happiness is fleeting and that suffering requires a sustaining meaning. King's Chapel, the people who started it didn't live to see its completion. They were driven by this nobility of transcendent vision, and they produced these enduring forms out of the bloody misery of history. We've erected all this spectacular infrastructure that we're so fortunate to be part of. None of that gratitude is taught, partly not taught because people have no sense of the absolute catastrophe of history. It's like nasty, brutish, and short. The simplest and most likely social circumstances, catastrophe punctuated by hell. And to see that not happening in a sustained manner constantly, and to see things improving around us and to be reliable in that manner, and then not to be grateful for that, it's an unbelievable combination of ignorance, ingratitude, and willful blindness. And to not instill that sense in young people, for them to understand that they are standing on the bones of generations of people who suffered to make this possible, despite all their errors, and have brought this forward. Happiness is fleeting, and suffering requires a sustaining meaning. They know happiness is fleeting, and that suffering requires a sustaining meaning. We could concentrate on building the future instead of criticizing the past. You start in the world, if you have some wisdom and some humility, by taking the potential that lies dormant in front of you and interacting with it in the logos-like manner, with truth and with love, and by transforming that potential into whatever you can create out of it that's good. It won't be small if you do that. You can transform your whole household by transforming your room. You can transform your whole neighborhood by transforming your house. Like, these things spread very, very rapidly, and that is right there in front of you. People think they're impoverished, that they don't have any opportunity, and the opportunity is hidden from them by their unwillingness to take the steps that are necessary to put what they could put in front of them in order, and to produce the beauty instead of the ugliness where they could do that. And I don't think there is anything more powerful than that. That works. Happiness is fleeting, and suffering requires a sustaining meaning. They know happiness is fleeting, and that suffering requires a sustaining meaning. Happiness is fleeting, and suffering requires a sustaining meaning. They know happiness is fleeting, and that suffering requires a sustaining meaning. So to say, well, here's a balm for the suffering, and it's profound and deep, and here's what it's meant to me, and here's how you can incorporate it into your life. People are absolutely starving for that, or dying of thirst for that.
It would be better if the person was roughly your age. Always shared some of your characteristics. I think you need to be able to see some of yourself in your Arch-Nemesis. I think you need to be able to see some of yourself in your Arch-Nemesis.
In my case, I feel like Garrett has been a renegade. He has broken rules, but he's also been an insider and an outsider. He has a PhD in physics. He has been more outside the system. I stayed longer probably in the academic game than he did. There is a sort of a degree of comparability. The picture that lies over my shoulder, I started to feel better about it when I saw into Floyd Mayweather's home after he defeated Conor McGregor. There was a photograph taken of Floyd Mayweather with giant pictures of him and Conor McGregor inside of this home. And so the idea that you would actually want to represent your arch-nemesis inside of your personal space, it makes complete sense to me.
I think you need to be able to see
Some of yourself in your arch-nemesis. I think you need to be able to see some of yourself in your arch-nemesis. I think you need to be able to see some of yourself in your arch-nemesis. I think you need to be able to see some of yourself in your arch-nemesis. What I'd like you to think about is whether or not you're ready to choose an arch-nemesis. An arch-nemesis. So let that be a motivational decision to propel you to try to keep working on something when you feel discouraged, to use an aspect of competition which is healthy. I'm very often reminded of my good friend Peter Thiel's admonition that competition is for losers. The idea that when you spend your time focusing on someone else rather than focusing on a very difficult problem, you often get distracted from what's really important and you find yourself in this kind of mimetic rivalry. I think that choosing an arch-nemesis is a slight exception to this generally pretty good rule. When I get discouraged and I don't feel like looking at physics, it does help me to think about the fact that somewhere out there, Garrett is pitching a wave in the waters off of Maui, thinking about physics and trying to push his theory forward. So I find that not dispiriting or enervating, but I actually find it energizing.
I think you need to be able to see
Some of yourself in your arch-nemesis. Some of yourself in your arch-nemesis.
I think you need to be able to see
Some of yourself in your arch-nemesis.
I think you need to be able to see
Some of yourself in your arch-nemesis. That an arch-nemesis isn't something that you have to wait for. When you find somebody with whom you're competitive, where you have a lot of respect for that person, and you want that person to motivate you over a lifetime, and you feel ready to make this decision, remember you should only choose one, and it should be a long-term relationship. You should be in dialogue with that arch-nemesis over time, and it should be energizing to you both. Just want to say, first of all, thank you very much. without further ado, I suppose the time has come. Be well.
People say things like, I do this in a kind of self-deprecating way. Well, I've been lucky in this, that. And you know very well that a lot of life is luck.
Akira.
But then a lot of it is, and it's underplayed, you also work hard. I realized some time ago that because I'm born in Britain, I have that natural tendency to like underplay something. Oh, well, I'm just lucky in that. And somebody said to me, you shouldn't do that. You do work very hard. And I thought, yes, but saying, well, I've been lucky in that is a nice way to say to other people, oh, I haven't really had the input, and you don't need to, particularly I. It's a flattering thing to say to somebody else, which ignores the wonderful phrase of Branch Rickey I came across. Luck is the residue of design. Luck is the residue of design. Luck is the residue of design. A lot of what we call luck, it has come about through something other than chance. I used to say, you're lucky to be born in America. And on one level that's true, which is like, you could have been born in the great pool, things you could have been born in Mogadishu, and it'd be a lot worse. But there's also something it covers up, which is the luck is that people before you made good choices that meant that you are in a situation which is more optimal. And it's not simply luck that you have in America the right to freedom of speech. Luck is the residue of design. Luck is the residue of design. It's the consequence of men and women making good decisions. Men and women making good decisions. Luck is the residue of design. Luck is the residue of design. We have to find a better way to understand what we often mean by luck. You have luck in your life, sometimes because other people have made good judgments that are effectively for you before your time. Your politicians, your family and others. It's not just some wild whirligig. It's also make prudent decisions, make wise decisions, work hard, and a lot more. And you'll find that you are what we call lucky or luckier. Don't do any of that stuff. Put everything off all the time. Be lazy, unmotivated, blame other people all the time for things that things you could correct yourself, and you will find you are the type of person that is described as unlucky. Luck is the residue of design. Luck is the residue of design. It's the consequence of men and women making good decisions. Men and women making good decisions. Luck is the residue of design. Luck is the residue of design.
isn't merely that your fate depends on whether or not you get your act together and to what degree you decide that you're going to live out your own genuine being. It isn't only your fate. It's the fate of everyone that you're networked with. There's 7 billion people in the world, and who are you? You're just one little dust mote among that 7 billion, and so it really doesn't matter what you do or don't do, but that's simply not the case. It's the wrong model, because you're at the center of a network. You're a node in a network. You're a node in a network. You're a node in a network. Node in a network. You'll know 1,000 people, at least over the course of your life. And they'll know 1,000 people. And that puts you one person away from 1 million, and 2 persons away from 1 billion. And so that's how you're connected. And the things you do, they're like dropping a stone in a pond. The ripples move outward, and they affect things in ways that you can't fully comprehend. And it means that the things that you do and you don't do are far more important than you think. More important than you think. Far more important than you think. The things that you do and you don't do are far more important than you think. The terror of realizing that is that it actually starts to matter what you do. And you might say, well, that's better than living a meaningless existence. It's better for it to matter. But I mean, if you really ask yourself, would you be so sure? The things that you do and you don't do are far more important than you think. More important than you think. Far more important than you think. The things that you do and you don't do are far more important than you think. You have the choice. I can live with no responsibility whatsoever. The price I pay is that nothing matters. Or I can reverse it and everything matters. But I have to take the responsibility that's associated with that. It's not so obvious to me that people would take the meaningful path. You know, when you say, well, nihilists suffer dreadfully because there's no meaning in their life, and they still suffer. Yeah, but the advantage is they have no responsibility. So that's the payoff, and I actually think that's the motivation. Say, well, I can't help being nihilistic. All my belief systems have collapsed. It's like, yeah, maybe. Maybe you've just allowed them to collapse because it's a hell of a lot easier than acting them out. And the price you pay is some meaningless suffering, but you can always whine about that and people will feel sorry for you, and you have the option of taking the pathway of the martyr, so that's a pretty good deal, all things considered, especially when the alternative is to bear your burden properly and to live forthrightly in the world. If you live a pathological life, you pathologize your society, and if enough people do that, then it's hell. Really. Really. The things that you do and you don't do are far more important than you think. More important than you think. Far more important than you think. The things that you do and you don't do are far more important than you think. What happened in the 20th century.
There's so much knowledge knowledge out there, so much information, so many ways to get better. And we make so many mistakes. We're the product of our mistakes. And oftentimes the lesson is sitting there right in front of our face. It's there to be learned, but we miss it, or we don't pay attention to it, or we think we know better until it punches us in the face. And the most important thing to learn is that we have so much to learn. We all do. And we can learn from school and people and from experience, and we learn from life. You get one shot at this gig right here. Life. One life. That's all you got. One life. One shot. But you have to process the information. You have to absorb it. You have to accept it. You have to open your mind. You gotta free your mind so that you can learn and make real progress. And as far as regrets, some things I wish I would have done differently, of course. Hindsight is 20/20, and looking back, of course, who wouldn't want to take another go at something and improve on the first try by doing it again? And then why not do it again and again and again? Why not do it over and over again until you have it perfect? But the fact is, you don't get that chance. You get one shot at this gig right here. Life. One life. That's all you got. One life. One shot. And regret, in and of itself, it's worthless. It does nothing for you. In fact, the only valuable thing in regret is the lesson you learned, the knowledge that you gained. But walking around filled with regret gets you nothing. So learn and move on. Don't let regret beat you down. Don't be a slave to regret. No. Let it teach you. Let it make you better. Let the fear of regret fuel you to take action today. Now. You get one shot at this gig right here. Life. One life. That's all you got. One life. One shot. You get one shot at this gig right here. Life. One life. That's all you got. One life. One shot. Take action now to become a better person. Not filled with regret, but filled with knowledge. Filled with knowledge and strength and power, and filled with life.
I only desire the approval of a relatively small number of people who I respect. If they said to me, I think you're totally wrong on this, Douglas, then I'd listen. But when it's people who don't want me to do well, then of course I don't listen to them. It's one of the tools we all have to hone in our lives, to work out who wants us to do well, who wishes us well, and to listen to them, even if they're critical of us, and they will be at times, and to separate out those people from people who just, of course they don't want you to do well. Hate you, hate everything about you, whatever. But I don't have much sympathy with public figures who say, I can't say what I think, I can't speak up, and all this sort of thing. If you're not going to now, when are you going to? If you're not going to in this life, what life are you expecting to come where you'll do it? person who doesn't stand with the mob, the person who doesn't go along with the mob, the person who refuses to walk with the crowd, will feel better. The person who doesn't stand with the mob, the person who doesn't go along with the mob, will achieve more in their lives, whatever that is, because they will have self-respect. I'm comfortable as you can be in the end times, as everything's burning down and there's plagues of locusts coming our way. And I have the satisfaction of knowing that I'm not lying. But the problem with going along is that it demoralizes you. It makes you a smaller person inside. You will be demoralized because you'll know that you shouldn't have done that. And at some level you will think badly of yourself for having done it. You'll feel regretful, you'll feel cowardly, and it will affect your life in other ways. And the opposite is also true. The person who doesn't stand with the mob, the person who doesn't go along with the mob, the person who refuses to walk with the crowd, will feel better. The person who doesn't stand with the mob, the person who doesn't go along with the mob, will achieve more in their lives, whatever that is, because they will have self-respect. That's what totalitarian movements across history always knew, was that you grind people down and make them agree to lies, because you will then be able to make them do anything. Václav Havel, great late Czech leader, cites the example of a greengrocer in Prague in the communist era in Eastern Europe, who has to put up in his window, like everyone else, the notice that says, "Workers of the world unite." And it's sent by party headquarters to all greengrocers. You all have to hang it. Václav Havel says a number of things happen from this. The first thing is that, of course, that the greengrocer is showing to everyone that he is a party loyalist and he wouldn't be able to operate as a business if he didn't do this thing. But it also hangs there every day as a sign of his subjugation. It's a little thing, but it hangs there as a sign of his subjugation. And it reminds him he's not the man he could be. You think you're doing a little thing, but you're not. You are diminishing your soul by doing this. Because you know that you could be something more than the person who just has to hang whatever party headquarters tells you to hang this week. The person who doesn't stand with the mob, the person who doesn't go along with the mob, the person who refuses to walk with the crowd, will feel better. The person who doesn't stand with the mob, the person who doesn't go along with the mob, will achieve more in their lives, whatever that is, because they will have self-respect.
Well, the argument for the simulation, I think, is quite strong, because if you assume any improvements at all over time, any improvement, 1%, 0.1%, just extend the time frame, make it 1,000 years, 1,000,000 years. The universe is 13.8 billion years old. A civilization, if you're very generous, civilization is maybe 7,000 or 8,000 years old. If you count it from the first writing. This is nothing. This is nothing. If you assume any rate of improvement at all, then games will be indistinguishable from reality. Or civilization will end. One of those two things will occur. Anyway, I don't want to sound like things are too dark, because I think you kind of have to be optimistic about the future. There's no point in being pessimistic. It's just too negative. It doesn't help. You know, I think you want to be... I mean, my theory is you'd rather be optimistic Eventually that'd be like the heat depth of the universe. A zillion years from now. Eventually it's gonna end. It's just a question of when. Because it really is all about the journey. The universe as we know it will dissipate into a fine mist of cold nothingness eventually. And I think it's really just about how can we make it last longer. I'd rather be optimistic and wrong than pessimistic and right. Than pessimistic and right. Than pessimistic and right. But I'd rather be optimistic and wrong than pessimistic and right. Than pessimistic and right. Than pessimistic and right. But I'd rather be optimistic and wrong than pessimistic and right. Than pessimistic and right. Than pessimistic and right. But I'd rather be optimistic and wrong than pessimistic and right. Than pessimistic and right. Than pessimistic and right. I think most likely this is just about probability. There are many, many simulations. These simulations are, we might as well call them reality, or we could call them the multiverse. And they're running on the substrate.
How far'd you ride from?
Rochester.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Where you headed to?
Perry.
Wow. Which way'd you come?
The Lehigh Valley Trail to, I think it turns into the Greenway Valley Trail, something along those lines.
Yep. Erie Attica?
Not that one. I did see that on the map, but no, I didn't take that one. I basically went southeast, then directly west, and then south. No, going to my grandmother's 90th birthday party.
Wow.
Yeah. Going in style.
Absolutely.
But it means I gotta charge up along the way. You gotta be shitting me. I have an adapter so I can use that, but it looks like I forgot it. No, it's not great, but I can use a regular 120 volt outlet. I just gotta find one. That's what I was gonna check. Oh, this wasn't even on. Let's see what we find. Ha. Sweet. Yep. Sweet. I mean, I'm not. Usually, I can find one of those. I just go for these because I get less people yelling at me.
I don't find anybody yelling at you here.
Sweet. I'll have to come out here more.
Right.
It's hit and miss.
Look at you and go, geez, that's good. They'll talk to you about it. That's all.
Well, some people either they love it or they hate it. It's hit and miss. Let's just go get back in here.
How long will it take?
I don't know. It's going to be the first time I've ever done this trip.
Oh, okay.
I can tell you it's going to take at least 2 hours.
So are you planning on coming home tonight? Or?
I'm getting a ride on the way back.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. All right. Let me see if I can wedge that back in here.
You're going to take the Greenway all the way down?
All the way to Kylerville.
Yep.
And then roads the rest of the way.
Wow.
All right. This is not going to be easy. I don't get that. Oh, fuck me. Oh. People down.